Jai Gurudev. Question. Sometimes I feel that my prana is stuck somewhere either inside or outside of me. This is probably defined as Antar Kumbhak or Bahya Kumbhak by the technical terminology of yoga. It is as if my breath is lost somewhere. This loss of inhalation and exhalation of breath causes uneasiness in me. Answer. The stopping of breath inwardly and outwardly, which has been well defined as Kumbhak, Antar or Bahya, is a good sign of spiritual progress. As long as this breathlessness continues, the tendencies of chitta are restrained. The fluctuations of the mind are also not there. This breathlessness is caused by two factors. The first is acquired state and the other is automatic owing to selfless surrender. When this state is brought about by practice, the aspirant repeats the process of retaining breath outwardly or inwardly. But selfless surrender enables the aspirant to get his inward power awakened, which takes over the control of his system. In fact, in this state, the physical sensation of breath is lost, but prana inside Sushmana is quite active. Sushmana is the middle nerve within the spinal column known to be the passage of Kundalini. If prana meets apana, the merging of the inhalation and the exhalation of breath takes place, and if it occurs outside Sushmana in the body, death is the imminent course. If the same union is possible inside Sushmana, Samadhi is the result. It may seem surprising how a person can continue to live with his breathing stopped. The fact is that the subtle breath is very much there, which help the physical system work as usual. The more subtle the pran inside the Sushmana, the quicker the process of awakening of Kundalini. Yog Darshan in chapter Samadhipad expounds on how pranayam helps control deeply rooted tendencies and brings about the state of samadhi. This control is only temporary when it appears by effortful pranayam. When pranayam takes place spontaneously owing to the instantaneous awakening caused by surrender of self, the whole process gets expedited. As long as the breath is active in Ida, which is the nerve to the left of spine, or Pingala, that is the subtle nerve to the right of the spine, without control, and its outward flow has not turned within into Sushmana, actual aspiration cannot be said to have begun. Retaining of the breath inside or outside the human body is one of many kriyas taking place in an aspirant. There is no doubt that the kriyas have much to contribute in the way of dissolving tendencies. Question. How can one meditate on God during the entire 24 hours of each day? I wish that whether during the course of aspiration or fulfilling worldly obligations, I could remain attuned to the Lord. Answer. To keep oneself in constant communion with God, is possible only when the glories of God are directly experienced by an aspirant. When inner awakening has taken place and Kriyaman Shakti becomes active, the feeling of doership is totally lost, and the seer in the aspiration takes over. He apparently experiences that the divine power is working independently in him. However, one problem which he faces is that as soon as he comes out of the course of aspiration, the ego soon replaces the seer. Naturally, the direct perceptible divine Shakti vanishes. The human being gets dissociated from God. There is no doubt that this is at the level of human mind, because in actuality the separation is never there. The accumulation of the effects of all actions then begins. The uninterrupted remembrance of God implies a state where the aspirant is not only aware of the divine presence during the activation of divine power within him, but also during his involvement in worldly activities. The repetition of a mantra is an effort for achieving this end only. When the repetition becomes automatic, or the divine power is felt directly, the uninterrupted remembrance of God becomes possible. A mantra is not a mere combination of words or letters. It contains subtle seeds of divinity, and its particular aspect of the divine power can be thus realized through it. Generally, people say that only God is the doer and they are the mere tools in his hands. However, the sense of doership in them seldom ceases. Neither a simple statement nor an intellectual assertion can make the divine presence visible. As long as it is not a direct experience, the absence of ego is not possible. To begin with, an aspirant should first get his Kriyaman Shakti awakened in his body and his Chitta, which then becomes a thing of direct experience for him in a course of time. Gradually, this power inside an aspirant is extended outwardly. When he sees things in the spirit of their true nature, he becomes a seer in place of a doer. He perceives a divine presence in all matters and objects, which enables him to remember God at all moments. The flow of water, the movement of wind, the shifting, the shining sun and moon, thunder and lightning are all working of one divine power for him. It is the basic cause of all virtues and vices, worldly or otherwise, in all human beings. This state of constant awareness of God comes when spiritual progress is that systematic. A simple statement of fact has no meaning here. One has to live and not merely experience this supreme state of being. Question: an aspirant sometimes receives inward instructions which are both true and false. Please tell us which one of these should be relied upon. Answer: the instructions received during spiritual aspiration are of two types. These are either at the instance of Kriyaman Shakti or the working of one's chit under the influence of accumulated effects of past deeds. When the instructions come from Kriyaman Shakti, they are true and aim at doing good for the aspirant. But if they are the functioning of the Chit, they are false and consequently causes suffering. Kriya Shakti herself, being full of knowledge, knows well enough what stock of accumulation of past deeds exist in one's chit, how they accumulated, what fruit they would bear, when the fruit would become ripe, and when an aspirant should do in these circumstances. The instructions coming from Kriyaman Shakti originate at a time when sanskars have not taken the shape of actions. Therefore, if these instructions are sincerely followed, they are beneficial to the aspirant. The effects which get converted into longings and desires tend to motivate the mind accordingly. A mind such as this becomes full of fluctuations. A person is unable to make right decisions in a state. Even while sitting for a course of spiritual aspiration, an aspirant is quite liable to receive wrong orders of the mind. Naturally, the reliance on such orders make the person unhappy. In fact, proper discrimination in this regard is somewhat difficult. Here lies the competence of the aspirant to make a correct decision. Broadly speaking, when the message is distinct by the way of automatic writing, vision, or hearing, it is because of the activation of Kriyaman Shakti. It may be asked whether or not such experiences can take place during the course of spiritual practice, dreaming, or even while quite awake and conscious. More often than not, they are there simply because of the accumulated effects of the past. The experiences become quite distinct when emotions like love, hatred, anger, or fear are very intense. Therefore, it is advisable to ensure that the mind is free from all feelings and attachments. The purer the chit, the clearer the reflections of Atman and the truer the instructions. Jai Gurudev.